before anything else, I want you to be very honest right now, not with me, but with yourself. Have you noticed that even while working, even while trying hard, even while doing everything right, money never seems to be at peace in your life? It's not just about being short. It's that it bothers you. It's there, but it keeps you tense. Sometimes there's a little left over, and instead of bringing relief, it brings fear. Fear of losing it, fear of messing up, fear of making the wrong choice and going back to zero. It's waking up and thinking about money before you even get out of bed. It's showering while thinking about bills. It's having lunch, wondering if that expense was too much. It's getting to the end of the day tired, not just from work, but from a mind that won't shut off. Money becomes constant noise. It doesn't scream, but it doesn't stay quiet either. It's always there, taking up mental space. Now think with me. Why does this happen to so many people at the same time? Is everyone irresponsible? Is everyone bad with money? Does everyone make bad choices for fun? Or is there an entire system designed to keep you exactly in this emotional state, tired, insecure, and always feeling behind? Stay with me until the end, because if you leave now, you'll keep thinking the problem is you. You'll keep demanding more willpower, more discipline, more control from yourself, when in reality, no one can live in a constant state of alert forever. And when you understand the game, a lot of things start to make sense. Banks don't make money because they're geniuses. They make money because they understand you. They understand your fear. They understand your exhaustion. They understand that tight feeling in your chest when your paycheck hits and a few days later it already feels like it vanished. They understand how your mind works under pressure, and they use that better than you realize. When you're at the beginning of your financial life with no savings at all, your brain goes into survival mode. There's no planning. There's no strategy. There's only putting out fires, bills coming in, unexpected charges, one problem after another. That constant feeling that anything off script could turn into a complete disaster. And up to that point, that's human. It's not a character flaw. It's biology. The problem starts when you manage to save a little. It's not much. It's not comfort. It's not freedom. It's just enough for you to think, okay, I'm not completely at the bottom anymore. And that's exactly where anxiety changes shape. Before, the fear was having nothing. Now, the fear becomes losing the little you conquered with so much effort cutting back, going without, holding expenses tight. You start looking at that money as if it were fragile. Any unexpected event becomes a threat. Any decision becomes a risk. And that fear is gold for banks. They know that a person with a small amount saved is extremely sensitive to loss. That person accepts almost any condition to avoid risk, accepts small fees that seem harmless, accepts interest rates that don't seem that high, accepts paying in installments, accepts paying the minimum, because the priority stops being growth and becomes protection just. Not the right kind of protection. You start reacting, not deciding. And every time you react, someone on the other side is deciding for you. Banks are masters at turning anxiety into a product. They don't sell you interest. They sell you immediate relief. A pretty aplicativo, a limit that appears out of nowhere. A message saying you've been pre-approved. That's not help. That's an emotional invitation made at the exact moment you're most vulnerable. Because when you're tired and your head is already full of problems, what you want most is a shortcut. And credit is the biggest psychological shortcut there is. It fixes things now and pushes the problem forward. But the problem never disappears. It just grows quietly while you keep thinking everything is under control. One of the biggest traps is making you confuse access to credit with financial security. Security isn't being able to spend. Security is being able to choose, and choice requires mental clarity. But people who live under pressure don't have clarity. They have urgency. They have haste. They have fear. So the bank gives you the feeling of control, a high limit, a card with a fancy name, an interface that makes you feel special. You look at that and think, at least I have this. And without realizing it, you start organizing your life around installments, due dates, and minimum payments. You no longer plan the month. You manage statements. You no longer think about the future. You try to survive until the next due date, and here comes something else. They dominate very well. Loss aversion, losing $100 hurts much more than gaining $100 feels good, so they build everything around that. Confusing rules, returns that are hard to understand, conditions that change over time. All of this makes you feel like leaving now would mean losing something, even when you're already losing every single month. You start living with money in your head all the time, but never with clarity. Always with weight. Always with guilt. Always with that feeling that you're doing something wrong somewhere, but you don't know exactly where. And when you don't know where you're messing up, you also don't know where to start fixing it. And the heavier it gets, the less energy you have to question, the less you compare, the less you change. A tired customer is a perfect customer because they don't argue, they don't question, they accept. They also know you don't want to feel stupid, so they use difficult terms. Long contracts, fine print, not to explain, but to exhaust you. And when you're exhausted, you trust, you sign, you accept, and later, when something goes wrong, all the blame falls on you. I didn't read it properly. I didn't understand. I messed up. That guilt paralyzes you and keeps you exactly where you are. Now pay attention to this, because this changes everything. The bank doesn't want you to go broke. It wants you to always be at the edge, a little tight, a little anxious, but paying not to free, not to deep in debt, just trapped enough not to leave. Over time, you start normalizing financial suffering. You start thinking that living tired is normal, that everyone lives like this, that there's no way out. And this normalization is one of the system's biggest victories, because when something becomes normal, no one tries to change it. But there is a turning point, and almost no one talks about it. There is a point where money stops being an emotional trigger and becomes a practical tool. It's not wealth. It's not showing off. It's not earning a lot. It's a mental threshold, a point where the brain leaves fear mode and enters decision mode. It's when you don't have to decide in a rush. It's when an unexpected expense doesn't turn into panic. It's when you can breathe before acting. Banks know exactly where this point begins. That's why they do everything they can to keep you below it. They don't want you to have a reserve that gives you peace. They want you to have a balance that creates attachment, because attachment creates fear, and fear creates bad decisions, and bad decisions create profit for them. When you understand this, something changes inside. Your bills don't disappear. Your salary doesn't increase overnight, but your perspective changes. You stop blaming yourself so much. You stop thinking you're incapable. You stop thinking the problem is a lack of effort. You start realizing you don't need more willpower. You need fewer traps. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be less exposed. You don't need to become a finance expert. You don't need to understand everything. Banks win precisely because you try to compete on the wrong field. They play with emotion. You try to play with logic. And in daily life, emotion almost always wins. What starts to work is creating distance between you and impulsive decisions. It's stopping treating your credit limit as income. It's understanding that installments don't relieve anything. They just postpone it. It's building a reserve, not to spend, but to think better. Because when you think better, you choose better. And when you start choosing better, small things change. An unexpected expense doesn't turn into desperation. A decision doesn't need to be rushed. A mistake doesn't turn into a snowball. And every time you don't decide in a rush, you step out of the territory where the bank dominates. They will keep offering. They will keep calling. They will keep trying to pull you back into the emotional game. But now you start to see it. And when you see it, falling becomes much harder. If all of this has made sense so far, it's probably because you live this yourself. And if you stay until the end of this video, you'll leave with a clarity that most people never have about money, not because they're smarter, but because no one ever explained it this way to them. Now, before continuing, subscribe to the channel. Seriously, this helps this content reach more people who are also going through this and don't even know it. Leave a like too, because that tells YouTube this video needs to be shown to more people. And comment a word down below. Common asterisk. Asterisk, clarity, asterisk, asterisk. If all of this has started to make sense to you, I read the comments, and that shows me you made it this far. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next is what really starts to turn the game around. What really starts to turn the game around is not making more money. That's what everyone expects to hear, but it's not what solves things first. What changes everything is when you stop treating every financial decision as if it were an emergency. Because while everything feels urgent, nothing is strategic. Notice how your mind works when an unexpected expense shows up. Before you even think about amounts, your body already reacts. Your heart speeds up, your stomach tightens, your mind runs through the worst case scenarios. It's not the money itself. It's the fear of losing control. And someone in that state doesn't choose well. They just try to relieve the pain. That's why two people with the same salary live completely different realities. It's not intelligence. It's not effort. It's the level of mental pressure under which each one makes decisions. One decides with fear. The other decides calmly. And that difference over time becomes an abyss. When you live at the limit, any quick solution seems good. Paying in installments feels relieving. Using your limit feels like solving it. Pushing it forward feels like buying time. But that buying time almost always charges emotional interest before financial interest. You sleep worse. You get more irritated. You avoid looking at accounts. You avoid thinking about it. And everything you avoid grows. The first real step toward change is not cutting everything. Not depriving yourself more. Not living as if you're being punished. It's stopping emotionally sabotaging yourself. It's understanding that not every choice needs to be perfect, but none should be made in panic. When you create even a small amount of space between the problem and the decision, something curious happens. The problem shrinks. Not because it disappeared, but because you stopped amplifying it with fear. And that only happens when you build a small margin of mental safety. That margin doesn't come from complicated spreadsheets. It comes from simplicity, from knowing exactly how much you can mess up without breaking, from knowing where the ground is. Because when you know where the ground is, you stop living afraid of falling. And this is where many people misunderstand reserves. A reserve is not money saved for a future emergency. A reserve is money saved to avoid bad decisions in the present. It's what prevents a small problem from turning into long-term debt. It's what gives you the right to say, not now. Without this margin, you become a hostage to bad timing. You accept bad conditions because you need to solve it today. You accept high interest because you can't wait. You accept anything that promises immediate relief. And the more you accept, the less of a way out there seems to be. When you start building this margin, even if it's small, something changes in your behavior. You question more. You compare more. You refuse more, and every refusal is a silent micro-victory against the system that wants you always reacting. You start to realize that your limit is not an extension of your salary, that installments are not a solution, that figuring something out almost always costs more later. And this realization doesn't come as a shock. It comes as relief, like a fog starting to lift. The anxiety doesn't disappear all at once, but it loses strength. It stops being the only one in charge. And when fear stops being in charge, you start to recover something very valuable, autonomy. Autonomy is being able to make small mistakes without destroying yourself. Autonomy is being able to decide slowly. Autonomy is not needing to explain yourself to anyone. And the more autonomy you have, the less interesting you become to the bank. Because you don't click on every offer. You don't accept every condition. You don't react to every notification. You start using the system instead of being used by it. This doesn't turn you into a cold or calculating person. It turns you into a less exhausted one. And a less exhausted mind sees better, does better math, can wait, can say no. That's why the real financial turning point feels slow at first, because it doesn't show up in numbers. It shows up in behavior, in calmer nights and less guilt, in fewer impulsive decisions, and that accumulated over time changes everything. If you're feeling like this is putting things in place inside your head, it's because you didn't need more information. You needed emotional organization. And almost no one teaches that. Now, if you stay with me, in the next sections we'll get into how to turn this clarity into a simple, realistic system that actually works even for those who earn little, for those who have already made many mistakes, and for those who are tired of miracle promises. But before moving on, I need you to do one simple thing. subscribe to the channel, and leave a like. This is not a detail. This helps this content reach people who are exactly where you've been or still are, and comment the word asterisk. Asterisk clarity, asterisk down below. It's not for empty engagement. It's so I know this message reached you the right way.